Okay, welcome back. Here in part 2, you can see that I've got my character selected in the scene, and all of the bones are correctly placed. Okay, so if we have a quick scan around the character, you can see if we turn on wireframe mode that all the bones have been correctly placed. You can see that the joints for each of the bones are in the right places where the mesh is going to deform properly. Interesting section here, actually. If you look at the character mesh, we come back out of see-through mode for a second. We've got 2 lines running on the top of the joint where the knuckle's going to actually bend. We've only got 1 at the bottom because there isn't going to be very much movement there at all on that side. And you can do very similar things to around on the elbows or around on the knees as well. With this character, I have made some changes. So here on my knees, I've got 3 edges at the front which allow the knee to bend properly. Then I've got 2 at the back so that I'm not deforming straight into one line, because sometimes that can look like too much like a pinch. So I've got 2 at the back and 3 at the front. I should probably put an extra couple in on the ankles and potentially maybe an extra 1 or 2 along this top section there. I'm going to leave it exactly how it is, because if anything goes wrong, it's probably quite nice for us to look at it together and fix it. So with the character selected, the bag, as I said before, is just going to be attached to one of the bones as a link. So I'm going to hide that because it's unnecessary for us at the moment. And then what I'm going to do is select the character mesh and come up to our stack at the top and make sure that we've got skin turned on and envelopes turned on. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and I've clicked on add and added all of my bones in to this list here. And what I can do now is I can go in and grab one of these bones. I can grab like the foot bone, for example, and then I can try and move that around and see how that's affecting the character. So here we can see it's done a pretty good job. Don't worry about things like the bone sticking out of the leg. The bone will never be seen. So once you've added those bones in and they link up like this, then you know where to go in and where to change and where to edit and things that need a bit more help. So far so good with this character. The bones that have gone in have actually gone in really, really well, and you can see that they're deforming most of the geometry quite well. So we can just check on our elbows here. You can see, oops, he's got such a massive head. You can see here on the elbow that potentially we've got a little bit of a problem just there. Now, you guys might have problems that are far worse than this, and that's why you should always start when you're rigging up very simple characters. So this guy is like super low poly if you look at him, and that's why he's really easy to rig. The more edges and the more faces and the more vertices that you've got in your character, the harder the job's going to be for you to rig it. So looking at this guy here, this is my problem area just there. So I can see that it's bending very nicely at the back. This vert here is controlled by that bone. This one here is controlled by this bone. But this central point here isn't working as well as I want it to. So I'm going to select the character mesh. I'm going to make sure that envelopes is turned on still. And then I'm going to select those sets of polys there that I'm not happy with. So I think these should be more over here. Okay, or kind of over there or something. So what I'm going to do is have those verts selected, and I just want to make sure that I've got not just that one, but I want to make sure I've got the other one that's next to it as well. So if I go in, just zoom in ever so slightly, what I want is that extra point just there. So those 2 are the 2 that I'm looking for. So I'm going to zoom back out and look at it again from a top view, because it's quite nice to see it from that view. Such a huge head. I should have thought about this before using him. Okay, so I've got those 2 selected. Now I know that I want to control the left forearm. So if I come in here and I click on left forearm, I can see that what I've got is what I need. I've got this section here selected. So if I go back in now and I decide that I want to edit where these verts are, what effect they're having from that forearm, I can come in and use my weighting tool. With the forearm selected, I can see that it's being controlled by the forearm by 70% and the upper arm by 30%. So let's just click on the plus icon, and we can see that we can move those verts in or out a little bit depending on which direction I want them to go. So I reckon 75 and 25 is a good way to go there. And I can set these 2 here. Now these are actually upper arm, and we've got 75, 25 there again. So I can turn that either down so that it's a bit more of a bend in there for the shape, or I can turn it up which doesn't give me the best kind of look that I'm after. So I'm going to bring it back to 30/70 on that one, and I think that gives me a much better sort of bend in that arm than I had before. Middle set, I've got it set to 50. And then if we pick on something quite large, so like the head, for example, if I come into my stack over here and click on the head bone, I can see that the head's controlling everything that I want it to, which is great. So it's controlling just those sections just up there. I don't want it to control the neck very much at all. I'm happy with where it is at the moment. The one thing that was I anticipate having problems with is the clavicle. So I haven't moved the arm around the clavicle area yet. So let's just grab that upper arm, just the upper arm I want. There we go. I'm just going to use the rotation tool to bring that down. Okay, that's it's quite surprising. This is he's actually rigged up really well through Max's default. Now this isn't normal. A lot of the time 3ds Max will have quite a few issues with it, with the character mesh. This is actually quite a nice example of 3ds Max working properly. And I've got clavicles as well that I can lift his shoulders up and down a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so he's working really, really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it because it's working so well that it's hard for me to show you what could go wrong and what you need to do to change the things that go wrong. So I'm just going to select some of this biped. Some of this character. So I'm going to select this section here, and I'm going to set this section here, right? And I'm going to tell all of that part of my mesh to be controlled by the spine. Bang. Okay. So that's totally incorrect. In fact, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to select parts of it and get them to be controlled by other bits of the body when it shouldn't be. So let's say those bits are controlled, right? So what you could end up with when you start skinning a character is something like this. So you'll select your foot like I did at the beginning and you'll lift it up, and what you've got is kind of lots of incorrect skinning going on here. Okay, so we can see here that this entire leg here should be controlled by those bones, and it's not. It's being controlled by the spine because we told it to try and break it on purpose. But we can also see that this foot here is pulling the vertices from the other foot. Now this is a really common thing when you first start skinning, because when you put two legs quite close together, you know, a computer program has a hard time working out whether there's just a little gap in between what should be that one leg or whether it's two separate legs. So you can't really fault it for making those sort of mistakes. So how do I fix this? Well, what I'm going to do is show you very quickly how we go through and fix a problem like this. And this is probably the sort of thing that you'll need to fix on a routinely basis based on what character you've designed. Again, the more polys that you have in your character, the harder this task is going to be. So I would advise that you keep them nice and low. If you want, like, this is after our animation module. So if you wanted your character to be a little bit more detailed afterwards, then you can go in and whack on Turbo Smooth or something and give him lots more detail afterwards. Okay, but you don't need to do that at the beginning. So let's see how we fix this. So if I grab my character mesh and I click on my edit envelopes, and I can see here that I want to control this leg here. I'm going to start with this leg. So using the thigh, I am fairly aware that my thigh is working perfectly because that's the one thing that I haven't changed. One thing I do know is changed is this calf muscle. So this one here, this calf bone. Now that should be controlling all of this leg. It shouldn't be controlling the foot, but it certainly should have more control over this leg than anything else. So if I select my calf muscle bone, I can either select it here, I can select it here, or I can click on these. You see these little thin icons here? They are the bones. So I can select that one there, and that's the calf one. And I can say 100%, bang, and the calf moves over to where it should be. Then the other thing that I want to do is when I've got my calf bone selected here, I can see that it's having an effect on the other leg, which I don't want it to. So if I select all the vertices on that side, okay, so all the ones on the other leg, the ones that I don't want to be affected by this bone over here, and I tell them not to be affected by that calf bone, okay? You can see how everything's kind of popped into its correct place. Then we're looking at, well, yeah, all of this should be connected to the calf, and all of these should be connected to, well, not the spine, but they should be connected to the right calf. However, I'm going to need to order it so that the foot is correct as well. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with this one that we've placed out on this side. I'm going to select what I believe is foot, so this section here, all of that is the foot, and I'm going to make sure that it's being controlled by the foot. So at the moment I've got the calf still selected. You can see it's selected there, you can see I've still got the calf selected here, and you can see I've still got the calf selected there. I need to change to the left foot as opposed to the left calf. Now I can either do that by clicking on the little icon down here, this little thin bone section here. I can click on this option up here, or I can find it in the list from over here. So if I select on left foot, I can see now that the vertices that I have selected, right, the ones that are kind of got these little squares around them, they're being controlled not by the left foot at all, but by the left calf by 100%. I don't want that, so I'm going to tell it to be controlled by the foot by 100%. Okay. So there we go. So we've got my foot correctly positioned. Now what you may need to do, I haven't got many joints here on this foot, and that's an area that I should really fix. I should have a couple of extra loops running through this section of my mesh so that the bottom half of those loops would be more controlled by the foot and less controlled by the calf, and the top half would be more controlled by the calf and less controlled by the foot. I hope that makes sense. So that bit I know I've done correctly. The next thing I'm going to do is select these points here, so this one and this one. I want those to be controlled by the calf, probably by 75%, maybe even 90%. Then my second set, so these two in the middle there, they should be 50-50 between the calf and the thigh. They shouldn't be controlled by the spine at all, so select spine and turn that off. Let's make sure that these ones aren't controlled by the spine either. Yeah, they are a little bit, so if I make sure that they're not controlled, it's because we told those bits to be controlled by the thigh, which was probably a bad spine, so which is a bad decision. So as you're going around, by the way, selecting is just a case of clicking and then holding down control, and you can select more than one vert at any one time. Here I want to make sure that the calf's having more, sorry, the thigh's having more control than the calf, so I can 75% or 90% that to make sure that it's controlling more or less of what I want it to. Looking around, I can see towards the back we're going to need to make some edits. So these two back here, they're the top half, so they should be controlled a little more by the thigh. So again, 75%, perhaps even 50%. And then the next two that are below that, might have to turn on wireframe just so that we can see where they are. Those again should be 50% between the calf and the thigh. And it's at this point you can probably start saying, well, I don't want it to have such a gap there, so I want them to be controlled perhaps less by the thigh, so they come up a little closer, and then the ones above that, so these two, they're currently being controlled mostly, or actually they're being controlled half a half, so I want them to be controlled a little more by the thigh, so that brings them close together. You've seen you get a much nicer bend in the leg there. So just go over that briefly again. These verts here are controlled by the foot bone, so by selecting foot, telling it how much you want it to be weighted by. Then you've got this set here, they're controlled 100% by the calf bone at the moment. And then as we go through this complicated area here, the joints that are coming together for the knee or elbows or things like that, this is where you start changing the amount of influence that each of these bones has. One thing I want to make sure is that, I mean, over here we've got some strange pulling, so it looks like we're being pulled by something on this side, and in fact we actually are, and it's the right calf. So you can see the right calf here is trying to have some influence on this leg, and we don't want that. So if I select on right calf, I can see via just this bluey hue that I'm getting over here that this bone over here is trying to control this stuff. So if I select all of that there and tell it, well, actually, no, thank you, don't control any of that, you can see that we had a little movement there and things just popped back into place ever so slightly. We'd have to do exactly the same as I've just done there for the for this other leg. So what I'm going to do is just pop this one back where it should be. That's pretty much a working leg there. If we look at it from the side and do a kind of almost like a walk gesture, you'll be able to see anything that's going to go wrong with it, and this looks pretty good. So that's one leg done, and then we'll do the same on the other one. So selecting the mesh, turning on edit envelopes, selecting the bottom set down here and telling them to be controlled by the right foot by 100%, this next set here, just scroll around and make sure that we've got everything selected. Incidentally, if you want to make a selection like this, you want to make a looped selection, but you don't want to go around individually having to like hold down control and select certain pieces, then what you can do is select one vert, hold down control and select the vert on the same loop as that one, and then click on the loop tool at the top, and it will loop all the way around and select all the verts on that same loop. So those should all be controlled by the right calf by 100%. So there we go, and you can see they turn red because it's the influence that they're having. These bottom two here, again, they want to be controlled by the thigh by 90%. Don't want to be controlled by the calf, by the spine at all. So one way of getting around that, and this is one thing that might help you out when if you've got certain vertices that are being controlled by lots of different bones, and you only want them to be controlled by like one or two. So in this instance, I've got 3 bones here, and I actually only want these verts to be controlled by 2 of the bones, the calf and the thigh. But if I say to the thigh now, okay, well, I want you to control these bottom 2 by, I don't know, 25%, then you can see the spine is still trying to have an effect on them. So the easiest way to get around that is to select one of the 2 bones that you want it to be affected by, hit 100%. Excuse me. And then weight it. Okay, excuse my coughing. So I'll carry on doing that. Okay, that should have covered that leg as well. So I think I've done it roughly the same way as I did the other one. So if I turn off edit envelopes, grab the foot bone again, lift that up, and yeah, we've probably got the knee's actually bending really nicely. The back bit's perhaps not doing the best job, but again, if we did a little walk cycle animation with it, I don't think many people would actually notice that we're kind of closing in on each other a little bit too much there. So that's essentially it. That is how you rig. It can be a complicated process. When you get to things like fingers, then you're going in there and you're selecting individual, making sure that this section here. So it's all about vertices really. So you're looking at these verts here, they should be controlled by that bone, and these verts here, they should be controlled by this bone, and vice versa. You know, you go along, you'd say these sections here should be controlled by that bone, etc., etc., and that's it. And you essentially just rig the character up using that technique. Once you've completed that, then that's it. Your character is done and he's ready to go. And what we'll do is we'll add in biped information to the biped. So if I go into my motion tool, I'm going to turn off my figure mode. And then I can add in an animation. So if I go to load file, see if I've got a bipe file. Okay, so I've got a walk bipe. So this is the kind of thing that you're going to have when you do your motion capture. So your motion capture information will be called, I don't know, Marissa attack or Levi death or something like that, right? So sorry guys. So you select whichever one of those it may be, click on open, and then if we just navigate to find our character, that information or the walk cycle or the motion capture information that you've gathered applies itself directly to your character. Now that walk cycle, I don't know if you noticed, if I just go back and go to open again and click on that walk, you can see in this little image here, and you can scan through it a little bit, you can see what it looks like. but that's a full-size character. That's a human-shaped and sized character. But you can see when it's applied, even to a character with tiny little legs and massive head, it works as it should. Okay. Then I can come up to my display. I can just hide my bone so I can see how he's looking. And there he is, little guy walking. Okay. If anyone has any issues or problems with rigging their characters, then don't stress too much. Try and rig it up as best as you can to start with. It doesn't take that long to rig or to assist you with rigging. I've been doing it for a long time now, so if there are any small problems with your character, then I'll help you out when we come back. Okay, I hope that is helpful. I know a lot of you were a little bit confused about how to rig up characters. That should help you out. So I've gone through how to place biped, how to change its sort of its structure, and then how to use the skin modifying tool, including how to use the edit versities. Verts. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Hope you have a lovely Easter. If anyone's got any problems, just text me, and I'll try and answer them as best I can. All right, cheers, guys. Thank you. Goodbye.